Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. It's another year of the crossover. I'm a cartoon for some reason, so what better opportunity could there be to review the meeting of two titanic, toy-based toon franchises? Anytime, probably. A world where science and sorcery go hand in hand in a medieval aesthetic, and one where a group of cat people are squatting on a planet after their own got blowed up. I'm taking issue with He-Man/ThunderCats, so let's see if this story makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. The first issue's cover sees our heroes from both series charging forward with weapons drawn. A cool scene, not unexpected for this premise. An alternate cover sees a similar scene with the villains, mostly the primary henchmen, while their ghoulish bosses look on, as sky ghosts or something. There's also an adult coloring book variant. That's just the line work. Finally, a chance to make Man-at-Arms face fuchsia and give Vulture Man alternating green and yellow feathers. Take that, society! Written by Rob David and Lloyd Goldfine, with art by Freddie E. Williams II and Jeremy Caldwell, we begin with Lion-O slashing at Mumm-Ra's abs with his sword, as red electricity shoots from the wizard's chest symbol.
Seems like everywhere I look, people are enjoying knives.
You might not know it to look at him here, but he actually smells like cherry blossoms.
Narration says that despite being again defeated by his most hated enemy, Mumm-Ra is one of the most powerful beings in all creation. On the very next two-page spread, he's made it back to his lair, the Black Pyramid, and takes a rejuvenating magic bath that patches him right up. He tells his bosses, the ancient spirits of evil, that he has a new plan to finally defeat the ThunderCats, but they're having none of it. For all the power they've bestowed upon him, he's done nothing but disappoint. And if they could leave the pyramid, they'd deal with the cats themselves. Typical employee performance review. The higher-ups are oh so critical of your work, even though you've always been on time and understaffed, and they'd totally do a better job if they were doing it themselves, but they're just so busy. That's not just me snarking. Even narration oddly refers to them as upper management. They've discovered a powerful sword that rivals Lion-O's, specifically the Sword of Power of Eternia, and tasks Mumm-Ra with retrieving it.
We believe you can do this, Mumm-Ra.
Oh, so now they're all about positive reinforcement. He bulks out and asks where to find the pointy MacGuffin. I suppose for dramatic effect, as we go to Eternia, narration noting it's considered the first planet of creation, but its kingdom consists of fools, apparently. Maybe that's not entirely wrong, as Adam has apparently overslept, tripping over his sword and rushing to the main hall. He's almost 20 minutes late to a gathering including the Masters of the Universe, each of whom has some biting but internal criticism, except for Monster Manny Faces, who apparently has the urge to kill for some reason. And we get this nasty glare from his dad, King Randor, who's holding something.
Well, Adam, if you can't be on time, I guess I'll just throw out this alarm clock I was going to give you for your birthday.
Yes, I see the irony, shut up.
Nothing a good fisto couldn't fix.
Hey, phrase it!
Seems to me that if he didn't have an actual alarm clock, there'd be, I don't know, attendants that could help him get ready, right? Later, Adam is getting chewed out for being late to a ceremony in his honor, asked if he even knows what it is his dad was going to give him. Cringer sticks up for his master.
Prince Adam is an expert on all matters pertaining to Eternian custom and ceremony. Go on, tell him, Adam.
Is it a belt? Like, to keep your pants up?
I don't need another belt, Dad. I told you. My pants fell down because I was mooning people, and I'm not making a good case for myself, am I?
It's actually called the Harness of Honor, which signifies duty and the will to defend Eternia. Randor received it at exactly Adam's age, but feels his son isn't quite ready, despite his claims that he'd do anything to protect their kingdom.
There are times I feel you just don't see me at all.
Maybe if you weren't in your room all day playing video games, listening to space rock music, and summoning lightning just before He-Man coincidentally showed up to save the day. Outside, people are panicking over an entire planet appearing in the sky above. Narration says that because Eternia is protected and cloaked by ancient magic, reaching it is exceedingly difficult, even for the very powerful Mumm-Ra.
So trust me when I say, this is pretty damned impressive.
Less impressive when you find out he'd just used Google Maps. Said planet, pulled within galactic spitting distance, is Third Earth, which is experiencing tremors from the displacement. Third Earth quakes, if you will. Sagely Ghost Jaga appears to tell the ThunderCats their new neighbor is Eternia, which he previously thought was just a legend, but senses that the two worlds will live or die together. Lousy gentrification, it's ruining the entire galaxy. Lion-O uses the Sword of Omen's Sight Beyond Sight to get an idea of what they're dealing with, while the Masters get to work. With another celestial body appearing so close, they too are having quakes, and are protecting the citizens from falling debris and whatnot. An enormous tidal wave hits the castle and sweeps away the king. Adam immediately dives in after him, take note of the harness of honor being left behind, and makes it to shore, where Cringer is waiting with his sword. Though the tremors are subsiding and his dad is still breathing, Prince feels now is a good time for his alter ego to step in. Before he can transform, however, the sorceress interrupts, saying something more powerful than any past villain he's faced is after the sword, and offers to lock it up in Castle Grayskull's vault until the crisis is over. Trusting in her wisdom, Adam hands it over. Yes, the situation is so dire, he needs to have his primary weapon and power source taken away from him. Don't worry, Ram Man will just headbutt this overwhelming new evil into submission. The bird lady then proceeds to stab him in the chest. I know it looks bad, but remember that miniseries I reviewed a couple years back? She sent him on a mission with a crystal that was slowly corrupting his mind and making him go bonkers. I'm sure giving him a gaping chest wound is all part of a test to make him a better hero. Panther and Lion-O are clearing some debris, the young king concerned that the vision he saw was of a mission unlike any his team had ever faced before. He's wondering if he's crazy to risk their lives based on a ghost and some sword-based fortune-telling. Because you've never relied on those before? When is this supposed to be set, exactly? Early in his time as leader? Midway through the original cartoon? There's very little context for this worry to feel substantiated. These guiding forces always reveal problems, but not solutions. Panthro says if the young monarch wasn't worthy of his title, he wouldn't be given such revelations. There is greatness within him, and the ThunderCats will be at his side, as we get a closing shot of the flyer they'll be taking to the next planet over. Meanwhile, the sorceress blasts Cringer away before being revealed as Mumm-Ra, who proceeds to explain how easily he fooled the prince, being rather visceral with that Adam on a stick he's got.
Evil exists in all living things. As the ever-living embodiment of evil, I can feel it, smell it, taste it. Evil feels like corduroy, smells like pine nuts, but tastes like stale Cheetos. Is that weird? I feel like it's kind of weird.
This means he can also detect the absence of evil, meaning Adam stood out like a sore but very noble thumb. Instead of getting into a fight, he plucked some choice information from the young man's mind to pull off his ruse. Mumm-Ra then asks for any last words because he's one of those old-school villains, and while spoken weakly, given the impalement and everything, Adam utters the words that transform him into He-Man, minus the injury.
If there's one thing I've learned, it's that change can be the most powerful force in the universe. I got that from a note my roommate Jeff left about doing the laundry.
He-Man starts fighting back, but is quickly blasted, and potentially killed if a certain green tiger hadn't stepped in to chomp on the villain's leg. It's a good thing I don't feed you more often, old friend. Animal starvation, how whimsical! Mumm-Ra gets away with a sword of power, which concerns our hero more than how he's all healed up. The mummy didn't leave of his own accord, however, pulled away by the spirits of evil who've brokered a deal with someone else. Mumm-Ra is reduced to mist, and the sword of power is now in the possession of Skeletor, who happens to have been the narrator this whole time, which makes some of that narration make a bit more sense. Insulting the masters and deriding heroes, okay, that seems on brand, but snarking about the ancient spirits of evil as upper management feels a bit off to me. Maybe Skullface used to work in retail. Like me! Wait a minute. Issue 2's cover has our heroes seem a bit more on the defensive, formed closer together and appearing more cautious as their enemies watch. You don't all pick the same place in hide and seek. Rookie mistake, people! A new narrator takes over, mentioning how growing up they had no fear of monsters or snakes, but rather worrying about the future and living up to their destiny. All this while Skeletor mixes Mumm-Ra's remains into his creepy crawler set, and we find he can still at least speak. As long as evil exists, so does Mumm-Ra, and he's indignant that the evil spirits favored Skeletor.
You, my ashen friend, failed your masters one too many times.
Like the old saying goes, 130 strikes and you're out. Skullface has promised to finally free the evil spirits from the Black Pyramid. Turns out his lair, Snake Mountain, was conceived as a way to honor the Serpent, long-lost sister to Mumm-Ra's old bosses. She's long gone, but her history and connection to the four others was revealed in a series of golden discs of knowledge forged by Eternia's wisest way back when. And he wasn't at all suspicious that they were available on the home shopping channel for 4 easy payments of $29.99. Now for why Mumm-Ra was part of the bargain. Skeletor has long been seeking He-Man's sword, but the power of Grayskull is so immense it would, as he put it,
kill anyone not up to snuff in the worthiness department.
Another weird bit of dialogue. Anyway, Skelly hopes to make up for that by becoming Ever-Living, which is why he's used Dust Raw in a potion. Sure, He-Man has a habit of getting in the way, but without his giant butter knife, he's at his most vulnerable. Meanwhile, the narrator mentions that while some see duty and expectation as burdens, he sees it as an honor, and takes it up willingly. Not because he's better than anyone else, but to prove to himself he's not a kid in over his head. Again, the narrator isn't revealed until the end, and normally I'd wait until then to reveal this, but it's Lion-O. And they do this same thing in subsequent issues as well. Maybe they were trying to get something across, like drawing comparisons and parallels between characters, keeping you in suspense to get the readers immersed and interested, making you think it might be one character, but it turns out to be another. I don't know. King Randor has woken up and is desperate to know where his son is. He-Man says the prince is fine, which Cringer concurs.
Oh yeah, he's safe. Couldn't be safer. What, you think he got run through his chest by a big honkin' sword? That's crazy! Who'd say a thing like that? What, me? I'm just a talking cat, what do I know?
That's when Evil-Lyn shows up, with not only Skeletor's other goons, but the mutants previously employed by Mumm-Ra, on another 2-page spread, but it looks really cool. With the added muscle from Plundar, He-Man is quickly overwhelmed, and the villains pile on, feeling pretty confident that they'll get that big payday Skeletor promised with little effort. Beastman mentions he's not so tough without a sword, which is then contradicted when He-Man throws them all off in one move on a splash page. If it had been Slithe or Vulture-Man saying something so overly confident, someone that wasn't familiar with the burly protagonist, I could see them getting ahead of themselves. But Beastman really should know better. Unless he has terrible memory from being punched in the face so many times by Eternia's Golden Boy. Adding insult to injury, literally, he punches Slithe so hard he draws blood, he warns that whatever price Bone Breath promised them, it's not going to be enough. But in a rare case of a hero getting hoisted by his own petard, He-Man, who chided Mumm-Ra for talking too much, gets that thrown back at him as the most beastly enemies gang up on him, all going for the face for some reason.
Tri-Jaw! Tri-Klops!
What is it, Vulture Pants?
This is why I suggested getting name tags. Some of us went to that team-building seminar to learn, you know.
The three each prepare large weapons called equilibrium defibrillators, and just as He-Man's gotten the monkey in off his back, as well as the Beast-Man and the Jackal-Man, he's hit with 3 purple beams, which, while seeming to hurt to some degree, aren't doing as much harm as expected, even when set to maximum.
Impossible! Nobody can survive 1 beam at this setting, let alone 3!
I think I know why. Ahem. Equilibrium refers to a state of balance, either physical, mental, or of opposing forces. Defibrillators use shocks or pulses to normalize heartbeats. Sounds like someone threw 2 words together just to name a weapon and didn't bother checking the definitions. Or was the equilibrium part referring to that Christian Bale movie about an emotionless future society? Because even so, I don't think it would have worked. He-Man leaps out of the way, and I guess you can't cross the streams even if they're supposed to balance things out, because then there's a huge explosion that destroys the weapons. Evil-Lyn is next to bat, casting a spell that exponentially increases his density and expositing how he'll plummet through solid rock and be buried alive. After a moment of calm, the ground starts shaking, and He-Man bursts out like a whack-a-mole out for revenge.
No one buries the power of Grayskull!
His friends learned that one fateful trip to the beach. Let's bury He-Man in the sand while he naps, they said. What's the worst that could happen, they said. Man-E-Faces got 3 broken noses that day. So I guess the spell just stopped at some point? Or He-Man got so angry the spell just faded away? I just don't know what the implication is here. Maybe that he's so strong he could still force his way back to the surface, but the spell was designed to increase his density exponentially, as in more and more rapidly. Did he stop getting heavier sooner than expected? Anyway, he starts fighting more furiously, throwing his enemies around, even rips off Trapjaw's jaw and throws it into Tri-Klops' eye, though weirdly accompanied by the humorous sound effects of concuss and impale. Was this an attempt to soften the intensity of mutilating one guy to blind another? Sure, these are cybernetic mechanical implants, but still pretty dark. Maybe this is Adam getting out some aggression from never getting to use his sword as a sword in the old cartoon. Evil-Lyn gets her own spell reflected back at her, turning her to stone. Jackalman gets punched into the upper atmosphere, and Slythe barely finishes his warning before being clobbered from behind by King Randor, with an axe. There's no blood, so assume he just hit him with the dull end. Whatever. Back at Snake Mountain, one incantation and Skeletor's potion is ready to drink. Mumm-Ra pleads against it, saying he'll reveal He-Man's true identity if he's spared. But Skelly feels victory is in the bag and doesn't care about his foe's secrets. He chugs his smoothie, grasps the Sword of Power, and says those 9 magic words. Meanwhile, He-Man is assuring the king of his intentions to stop Skeletor and protect the kingdom when he's engulfed in blue light, the power leaving him, and he reverts to Prince Adam before Randor's eyes, and still fatally wounded. Now he's not just late, he's the late Prince Adam! Too soon? I guess Adam saying he was dead for being late and Buzz-Off's late to his own funeral remark were supposed to be foreshadowing. Skeletor admits that he couldn't have gotten this coveted power without the
acidine spirits of evil,
but he's totally going to renege on his promise to free them from the Black Pyramid, favoring to finally claim the fabulous secrets of Castle Grayskull, confident no one can stop him. Cue the Thunder Tank busting through the wall and the battle cry from Lion-O, whose narration has pointed out that he can't wait for age to give him wisdom, and while he may be a boy to some degree, the fate of 2 worlds rests on his shoulders. So more importantly, he's a king and a warrior. Sounds like someone hasn't quite finalized his business cards. So far, the story has been very well paced, not so fast that it feels like we're missing something, nor does it drag anywhere. We get some character trials for our 2 focal protagonists, though I'd say with the lecture he got from Randor, Adam's feelings of inadequacy felt a bit more earned than Lion-O's. Honestly, we don't see a lot of him or the other T-Cats, except when they're reacting to the crazy stuff going on. One has to assume that, while likely in its own continuity, the characters are somewhat based on their original animated counterparts, though obviously with more edge, what with the stabbings and the bleeding. I was a little thrown by some of Skeletor's dialogue, mostly because it felt very Earth modern, with phrasing like worthiness department. Did kind of take me out of the fantasy just a bit, but it's not a huge deal. Though traditionally, the sorceress cannot leave the walls of Castle Grayskull except in the form of Zor, a falcon, and her magic limited to telepathic contact to close friends. At least in the original show, according to a wiki I checked. So really, her showing up in human form should have tipped He-Man off. Probably an oversight on the writer's part. Nothing that should really count very much against the overall story. We had some good fights and seriously raised stakes. Maybe the next issue should be called Masters of the Universe / ThunderCats. Tune in next week to see if they find a way to revive a fallen hero, or if they try to trick Skeletor into thinking he's alive by moving his body around with wires. I call it Weekend at He-Man's. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.